So we have updated NICE guidelines for menopause. So the NICE guidelines are the guidelines that all GPs and health practitioners work with regards to like identifying and then looking at what they may prescribe and like what medication you may be looking at. So, and all that kind of stuff. So let's have a little chat about what these new guidelines, what they look like, if we think they're a little bit better. I think for me, the first thing that's quite frustrating is they're called menopause guidelines, and yet that's great. And it does reference like identifying perimenopause and menopause, but I don't feel still that perimenopause is given enough like there's nothing, there doesn't seem to be enough meat on the bones with regards to how this is a 10-year period of life, how it can start like at any age. And so there still seems to be like quite a focus on over 40s, which is great because I think it was over 45 previously. So it feels like we're a bit further forward. But the most frustrating thing for me was that when they talk about identifying perimenopause, there is a real focus on, it says vasomotor symptoms, which are hot flushes and night sweats and changes in menstruation. Now, hot flushes, night sweats and changes in periods, yes, are key symptoms, but so many like women go through or are starting perimenopause and they don't have those symptoms. So if you're saying in the NICE guidelines to identify perimenopause and your focus is talking about hot flushes, night sweats and a change in periods, if women have 20 symptoms of perimenopause but not those two specific ones, then I think we're still going to have a battle. So that for me is so frustrating because there was a real opportunity there for them to actually, talk about the full scope of what these symptoms could be and like have a full list. So from what I can see, there doesn't seem to be like a full list and there's like 80 symptoms potentially of perimenopause. So yeah, that feels like we've not really made what we need to do. And there just seems to be such a lack of focus on like the mental health side, so brain fog, overwhelm, anxiety. There's just a lack of depth, I think, with regards to that, even to the point where it says like it references like mental health, like depression, and says, if you would typically be diagnosed as being depressed, then treat it as depression. And it's kind of like, that is so frustrating for me because I was like, my symptoms were typical of depression, but it was perimenopause. And the minute I started using HRT, so we've missed a trick again there. So there's not enough focus from a perimenopause perspective, and it's kind of like, it just feels like it's leading into that whole thing of it being more like a depression and psychological state. And that then is picked up again in there's an area where it talks about psychological support for those experiencing menopause symptoms for those aged 40 to 44. So if you're in that age bracket, then they're verging on the psychological support. And that for me is just so frustrating because I had psychological support. I was speaking to a counsellor in 2020 and I had a breakdown in 2021 because I needed hormones not to talk to somebody. And therapy and counselling is amazing and it has such a valuable place, but I needed hormones. And so it's just really like frustrating because it feels like menopause is not a psychological issue. This is a physical change due to our decline in hormones. No amount of talking about it is going to stop that. So, and it's frustrating because historically we do psychologize women's actual biological changes. So that's annoying. And it should not be instead of HRT. So if people do need counselling, yes, but whilst we've kind of got where HRT is actually now very clearly first line support, but actually we're still kind of going psychological, talking to people if you're 40 to 44, and actually HRT is what will probably solve it. So then there also is an annoying part where it doesn't differentiate between, so there's talk about HRT, there's talk about the risks with it, but it doesn't differentiate between the older synthetic HRT and the newer, more natural body identical transdermal hormones, because actually the risk is like so much like less for the newer ones than what it was the older ones. So it could still be pushing the risk side a little bit too much. And I don't want to say that you know what I mean. I'm not, because there are risks to everything and we need to be aware of them. However, it literally, so what I've seen here is the word risk is mentioned 3 times as often as the word benefit. So it feels like you're still trying to put people off, even though we know with the newer types of HRT that those risks aren't what we were told they were. So that's frustrating. And there is also no mention of ADHD and perimenopause. Very frustrating, that one is, actually. Like, having personally experienced, obviously, that I realised I was going through ADHD. I realised I was ADHD because I was going through perimenopause. No mention of that. Interesting thing though, this is a big bonus, but this is from the British Menopause Society. They have come out and said they've updated their guidelines to say there is no evidence to justify stopping HRT at a certain age. So that's like a big win. But so sticking to the NICE guidelines, I think it's still going to be a battle for women aged 40 to 44 to talk about HRT, and also for them to actually acknowledge that the psychological issues that we have that are brought on by our decline in hormones are from that. So I think that's a massive loss, because brain fog, overwhelm, anxiety, that feeling of loss, just that whole, like, the memory side of things, the literally the low mood, the anger, all of that side of things seems to have been like, go and talk to somebody if you're age 40 to 44, and that's frustrating and disappointing. So yeah, if you are over 45 and you have come across any kind of your GP saying you're too young to be perimenopausal and not wanting you to go down the HRT route, now is the time to go and speak to them though, because these new guidelines will help you have that conversation. So go armed with that, and let me know how you get on. I hope it goes well.